Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody, this is Craig. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. Glad to have you with us today. And joining me, as usual, for our weekly roundup of the news, Nancy Derringer and Alan Lengel from Deadline Detroit.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
Do you know what I learned this week?
What did you learn this week?
This seat is known as the bimbo chair.
Really?
Yeah. Now, you put me here because Alan is so tall.
Yes.
And you say he tends to obscure me, but in truth, I am put here as eye candy.
Wow. Well, there you go. See, now, as somebody who's been in radio a long time, I can plead
I thought
total...
that, but I didn't want to say that.
I can plead total ignorance on this one. So don't send me emails complaining about this.
If only I had fox legs,
well,
you know.
Well, I'd put the uplight underneath there, right?
Yeah,
so there you go.
The fox legs and the fox lips, and then, of course, you need the fox hair, which looks like a python
the silver
hood.
fox thing you've got going on.
Well,
these days,
I
though.
know,
So
not
there
yet,
you go.
but yeah,
Okay,
we'll see.
close enough. Anyway, all right. So this week, I say this every week.
Mm-hmm.
What a strange week. Well, this week has been
Depressing.
just bizarre, and I have to look at the front page of the of the New York Times on Wednesday of this week. I have to give somebody else credit for this. There's a tweet that I read that said, you know, today's New York Times front page looks like something the Onion would have done in anticipation of a Trump presidency.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And I was like,
those were the headlines. Read
it.
the headlines.
The headlines were basically Trump's rollback of auto pollution rules shows signs of disarray. A journey through shattered Syria. Italy's government collapses. NRA gets results on gun laws in one phone call with Trump.
Sure.
Trump says he's exploring various tax reductions. Trump accuses Jewish Democrats of great disloyalty. And that's just the beginning.
This is our hellscape.
Day. Wednesday of this week was just a truckload of nuttiness coming out of the White House.
Yep.
And where shall we start? I feel like I have to play this game every week. It's everybody's favorite game. Let's ask the Jewish guy. Alan Lengel is here.
I'm a con, but I think I can
But you know,
convincingly with my...
Speak for the Jews.
the
I'm Alan
loyalty-
Lengel, and I speak for the Jews. Go
the
ahead.
statements that he made about Jews who vote Democratic are showing great disloyalty. And he didn't specify as to who they were being disloyal to, but he's implying that they're being disloyal to Israel, which and also disloyal to him, obviously.
Right.
No, to him.
But
He
the
doesn't care
but
about
the
Israel.
He
disloyalty
doesn't care
thing.
about Israel.
A politician calling into question the loyalty of Jewish people or people who are not from a majority religion. It's been happening with Catholics in this country as well. It happened to John F. Kennedy. But this is something that Hitler used against the Jews to turn people against them. He says he's like, you know, the least anti-Semitic person in history, but he keeps going back to these anti-Semitic tropes all the time.
Over and over again.
And trying to sort of flip them on their ear. I don't get it.
He's tone deaf. And so
Tone
whatever
deaf.
he says, you know, he tells Congress members, go back to your, you know, shithole.
Yes.
Or whatever. And also, I mean, this is just so insulting. I actually posted the national director of the ADL would send out emails.
The Anti-Defamation League.
Yes.
Anti-Defamation League. And he starts out by saying, Jews are not political props, plain and simple. Accusing Jews of dual loyalty is a form of anti-Semitism, period. I appeared on CNN this morning to make clear ADL's point of view about President Trump's unacceptable statement that Jews who vote for Democrats are disloyal. I mean, it's just so incredible how, and, you know, I think it's going to backfire with the Jews. I mean, you know, there's a resentment there, at least among, you know, some of the Jewish people I know, that he would say that, granted, they're not big Trump fans, but...
Well, he's turning Israel into, or he's turning this into a wedge issue.
Well,
and,
yeah.
you know, trying to, you know, put his enemies in disarray. And, you know, the day that you can do that with our one Western democracy in the Middle East that's been our ally since its inception is I mean, is there anything this guy can't break? He can break everything, I guess.
But it's also just this notion that this is one monolithic voting bloc, that they're
Oh,
a
yeah.
one-issue group of people, and as long as you support Israel, then we're going to fall in line behind you and do everything you say. I'm sorry, but Jewish voters in the United States worry about taxes, education, roads, all the same stuff that we all worry about. It makes no sense to think that this is the one thing that could flip them to the side of Donald Trump, who, remember, this is a guy who did not want to suppress white supremacism.
Right. Jews will not replace us.
It's not like anybody's going to forget that, are they?
Very fine people.
I mean, I think Donald Trump has done nothing great for Israel. I mean, I know there are some Jews who say, "Oh my God, he's so great. He's moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem." But what has that really done for Israel? I mean, it's purely symbolic. It's another gesture of saying, "Yes, the U.S., we really care about you, Israel. We'll do what you want." Israel doesn't really need that. Israel needs support. Obviously, they're taking financial support from us, but in the end, as I always say, there's no military solution. There's got to be a negotiated solution. I mean, we're far off because of all the polarizing forces there, but it's really there. And there are a lot of Jews who care about Israel. I'd say the majority have very strong connections or feelings about Israel, but I think you'll find just a sliver, particularly maybe in the Orthodox community, but even in the Orthodox community, there are people who did not vote for Trump, but there are some who are very singular in their voting, and that's all they care about is who's good for Israel. But that being said, the majority of Jews resent that type of, as you can hear by the statement from the ADL, resent the kind of remarks that he's doing, how he is trying to use the Jews to play off each other. And when the majority of Jews are Democrats and the majority of Jews are progressive or liberal, but it's a disgrace. I mean, he's gone after every minority and pretended to be supportive of every minority. And I don't really buy that he's such a big supporter of Israel or the Jews, to be honest.
Well, this is my favorite thing that happened on Wednesday, though. This was, of course, this tweet he basically tweeted out something that Wayne Allen Root had said. Wayne Allen Root, of course, a right-wing conspiracy theorist, radio guy, who, and this is what the quote he tweeted. Yes, is that right?
Yeah.
The tweet?
The tweet quoted, right, yeah.
It says, "Thank you to Wayne Allen Root for the very nice words. Quote, President Trump is the greatest president for Jews and for Israel in the history of the world, not just America. He is the best president for Israel in the history of the world, and the Jewish people in Israel love him. Like he's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God." Which I don't believe they believe in the first coming.
I don't believe Jews believe in the first coming.
But American Jews don't know him or like him. They don't even know what they're doing or saying anymore. It makes no sense, but that's okay. If he keeps doing what he's doing, he's good for it, and it goes on from there.
It reminds me of Dennis Miller in his 1982 concert in Washington, D.C., where he talked about being born again. And he said, "Well, excuse me if I got it right the first time."
That's pretty good. But, I mean, it was just, and the fact, okay, Wayne Allen Root, whatever. The fact that he's retweeting this guy in the first place shows a lot about his judgment. But the fact is, that's just crazy stuff. And he's like, "Oh, yes, they love me. I am a god over there. I'm the king of kings." Come on, dude.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he used the phrase "chosen one" yesterday. I think he was actually sort of mocking that notion and looking to the sky and saying he's the chosen one to deal with China.
Right.
But, people, of course, are going to run with that and say, "Oh, my God, this guy really is completely batshit."
Delusional.
But,
right.
Delusional.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean,
but
Grandpa's sundowning again.
Yeah, right. But for a narcissist to say I'm the chosen one is not that far of a reach.
No.
I mean, he may be joking, but not so much.
Not so much.
Now we know.
The other thing, he also channeled the thoughts, apparently, of Henry Ford and Alfred P. Sloan yesterday. Of course,
You're talking to the wife of the Autos editor here. I know all about this.
I know. This is great. Well, this is in response to the fact he has been trying to lessen the Obama era rules on auto efficiency, right?
On everything.
Well, on
we're
everything,
actually
yes, that's true.
we're actually like take
Obama
another
fans
look
be
at
like,
the
you will not
endangered
erase us.
the
Right, right.
Endangered
Yeah, yeah.
Species Act. You know, so he'll be roasting a bald eagle on a spit probably before too much longer. But go ahead.
So he tweets out yesterday, he's upset that a number of auto companies have taken to negotiating directly with California, which has traditionally had a higher emission standard than any other state, higher than the federal government mandates. Because they've got big smog problems, right? They've got huge population, big smog problems. They want to reduce this stuff, and their population kind of likes the idea of fuel-efficient vehicles.
Right, and they're
So
a
BMW,
900-pound gorilla in the car market.
BMW, Volkswagen, Ford, and Honda
Yeah.
all entered into a joint agreement with California on the higher emission standard that California wants to leave in place. The federal government right now, under the Trump administration, is trying to make that illegal for California to even have their own standard. They're trying to reduce it. So it's frustrating. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I mean, I talk to a lot of people who also work in the automotive journalist world. They talk to these companies all the time. They like the California standard because they at least know what it's going to be from day to day.
Right, exactly.
And so these companies negotiating directly with California, blowing this off, they know that the future, they believe that something is going on out there.
Right.
They
And
want to not be a part of the problem. They want to be a part of the solution because
Yes.
customers will turn on them if they're not.
Yes.
He's resentful that they don't want his help in lowering the standards. They're like, no, we want, and it's
Well, it's kind of like the Paris Agreement too. I mean, that's all these other countries are like, well, we're gonna keep doing this, and these corporations said we're gonna take these goals as, our own goals, and we don't really care what you think of the agreement. And I think that drives him completely insane. I mean, as you said, but he's also, I mean, these, like you said, these are. They want to know. They know this is coming. The auto companies want to be part of the solution, and he's not going to be president forever. I don't think that's occurred to him.
See,
yet.
it just seems forever.
But here's the thing, too, and what bothered me about this tweet the most is just how much stuff in here is not correct. I mean, he says, the legendary Henry Ford and Alfred P. Sloan, the founders of Ford Motor Company and General Motors, are rolling over at the weakness of current car company executives willing to spend more money on a car that is not as safe or good and costs $3,000 more to consumers. Crazy. Henry Ford would be very disappointed if he saw his modern-day descendants wanting to build a much more expensive car that is far less safe and doesn't work as well because execs don't want to fight California regulators.
I have no idea what that means. What does that mean? Nobody knows what it means.
Exactly.
I feel like that Woody Allen movie. I have Henry Ford right here, and I know.
I talk to people in the energy industry, the car industry.
Yeah.
They all know stuff is changing.
Yeah,
and they're
of
like,
course they
we
do.
want to do this.
Of
They're
course they
doing it
do.
no matter what.
But I would say Henry Ford would condone what he said about the marches in Virginia and some other
that's
things.
right.
So,
Right.
so
So he does have an
he
ally there.
he's out there pleasing Henry Ford.
Noted anti-Semite.
Right.
Well, but at the same time, just I don't understand why there is this desire to not embrace emerging technology, not embrace new ways of thinking, cleaner technology. It just seems to me that this is something we all should want. I want a car that goes just as fast, gets me where I need to go, but does it for less money.
I think
I
it
am not-
would require him to do some extra reading to have an understanding of what's going on.
I am not going to argue with Donald Trump's ideas as though they are rational ideas anymore. I mean, I just simply.
But they
no,
change.
you
They change
can't.
from minute to minute.
They
too,
change from minute to minute, and they make no sense. How is a cleaner car less safe?
It's like
I could believe that it might cost a little more money, but I don't understand why it's not as good. I mean, why it would be less safe, why it would be less of a pleasure to drive. I mean, we're talking about an emission system here, not a
exactly.
splatter.
We should still be driving Stanley steamers out there.
when
Steam
you're
cars.
talking, just
It's like Grandpa Simpson here. Yeah, go ahead.
go a step further about gun background checks and guns and stuff like that. He was very adamant.
Oh,
Yes,
we're
we're
gonna
going to
do
do
that.
something about it. Gets a call from the NRA. Then
Wayne
he's suddenly
LaPierre
like,
on line
well,
one.
you do one thing and the next thing, and
a
before
slippery
you know
slope.
it, they're
Where's it
taking
end?
away our guns. And someone said, "That sounds like." A reporter yells out, "That sounds like a NRA talking point." He goes, "No, that's a Trump talking point."
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is it's unfortunate. There's no credibility left. I mean,
Well,
can you
he
believe anything he says?
He flip-flopped on that over the course of about 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
And at first he said, we're going to do something about background checks. Everybody wants this. In fact, about 90% of the population, both Republican and Democrat, want universal background checks, so you can't do backdoor purchases at gun shows, stuff like that. People want that to happen, which makes sense. And that's the minimum, as far as I'm concerned, that we need to actually do to see if we can't rein in this violence problem we have, because we had another 6 people get shot in Detroit over the weekend. I mean, it's just stupid stuff like this. And now, basically what he just said is, we're not going to do anything. We're going to deal with the mental health. Well,
yeah, right.
Yeah, and where's the funding for that? I've yet to see that.
The argument I saw the other day was someone was saying, the majority of the shootings are taking place involve illegal guns, and I can tell you, I was on retainer with ABC News, and I was jumping in every time there was a domestic shooting, a domestic terrorism, whatever, and international terrorism. I can tell you domestically that the lion's share of guns involved were legally purchased guns. And easily purchased guns, where you can just go down and buy whatever. And then even, someone pointed out, they said, well, all these things are legal, like the bump stock that was used to convert semi-automatic into a machine gun at the Las Vegas shootings. Yes, that was illegal, and that's the problem. That's why we have to re-examine some of the gun laws. That should have never. Why is it that we can outlaw machine guns, but we can't outlaw a device that converts guns into machine guns? I mean, it's just insane.
Bump stocks don't kill people.
Yeah.
Guns with bump stocks kill people.
Right.
Lots of people very quickly.
Right.
But so he flip-flopped on that pretty quickly. He flip-flopped. Here's a great story for you. My podcast on Wednesday was with the chair of the economics department at Wayne State University, talking about whether or not a payroll tax cut, which the Trump administration first said they were considering. Then they said they weren't. Then they said they were considering it. And I did the interview in the morning. By the time 4 o'clock in the afternoon rolled around, my podcast was out of date, because they now said, we're not talking about a payroll tax cut. Because admitting that you're looking at a payroll tax cut means you think that the economy might be going in the tank soon.
Sure.
But we can't have that.
No.
We can't make it look like the economy might be turning for the worse, because that would be admitting that maybe I'm not the genius that you think I am. By the way, Donald J. Trump, the J stands for genius. So he flip-flopped on that.
But we're going to increase funding for mental health too, and while diminishing revenues to the government. So there you go.
in deficits, $1 trillion deficits now on the horizon, by the way, which most Republicans,
remember that?
I know, used to care about that stuff.
I remember when people cared about deficits.
They only care about it when it's a
They also
Democrat in office.
cared about family values.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was
very
fun.
true.
Back
when,
man, you remember when Bush
we never,
came in.
You know what though? Look at the bright side. We never have to listen to that crap again,
Yeah.
ever, for the rest of our lives.
Right.
Not it's going to be that much longer.
Oh, somebody will bring it up.
Oh.
There's always Rick Santorum out there to make
I
sure that
know.
we're doing the right thing from a morality
we don't have to
perspective.
listen to him. We
Well-
just have to stand there and then just watch him go blah 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 blah.
Who better to be the poster child for family values than Donald Trump?
Really?
Well, of
exactly.
course.
He's had so many families.
He's got a lot of experience. But so anyway, these flip-flops keep coming and coming and coming, and it's just you don't know what thing to
Right.
believe at this point in time.
No.
We got to get off of him for just a little while because
he's so depressing.
But we talk about the gun issue. Now that nothing's going to get done, it seems that Michigan right now, we're going through our own sort of gun issue in terms of nothing's going to be done. We can't agree on what the problem is when it comes to dogs. This horrible, horrible story about a 9-year-old girl riding her bike through an alley. The man who owned these 3 dogs that attacked this girl, she was killed, of course, has been charged with second-degree murder just a little bit earlier. And
Being arraigned in 4 minutes. Go ahead.
we can't agree as to whether or not it's the dog, is it the breed, is it the owner, and the arguments fall in the same lines that the gun debate does all the time, so nothing gets done. Other states have taken action on this. This is a problem.
This is one where I have a really hard time knowing what the solution is. Because first of all, I mean, when you say, okay, let's say we could magically pass a law that says we get to confiscate every pit bull in the city of Detroit. It's like, first of all, 90% of the pit bulls in the city of Detroit are friendly family pets. And, you would end up, you would run into things like property rights enforcement. What are you going to do with all of these dogs once you've rounded them up? Are you just going to kill them all. I mean, this is the most popular breed probably in the city.
But
Well,
throwing
you know,
up our
DC
hands and just saying we don't know what to
we can't.
do.
We
Right,
don't know
well-
what to do. That's the thing. I don't know. I mean,
I
you know,
think
obviously
we're
he's
back here
charging this
again.
guy. I mean, the guy those
Charging the guy, I think, is the right thing to
It's
do.
absolutely the right thing
If
to
you
do.
own animals like this, remember the Cane Corso situation where the woman was
Yes.
jogging a few years back?
yeah, those
Same
people
deal.
got serious
They're
prison time,
weapons.
too.
I mean, for some of
They
these
are.
dogs, they're weapons.
Well, we've
And-
seen, and the video that we have seen, that video that was in Roseville the other day where that fight broke out on the street.
Right.
This is a video that was on Deadline Detroit.
Right.
Where the guy used his dog as a weapon in the fight that he was in with that other person, had his dog attack the person that they were fighting. That type
in
of
the
a situation.
Quentin Tarantino movie.
Well, but that's, if you have a dog like
Exactly.
that,
It's like having a gun in the house, and you better take care of it.
Well, how
But the
many?
other
How
thing
many?
is,
I wonder
at
how
one
many are
point-
licensed. Actually,
No idea.
well, they're supposed to license your dogs in the city, but
The other thing is, I mean, when you have a dog that's a pit bull. Nuh-uh. I got it from the pound. They said it was mixed breed. I mean, you know, you run into these bloodline questions. It's like, what is a pit bull? What is a pit bull mix? What is a dangerous pit bull? What is a, you know, and it's like trying to say, you know, I mean, it
with
treats
purity,
people,
like,
purity
like my
and so
pit
forth.
bull
It's not like there's
family
I mean, it's-
came off the Mayflower.
Yeah.
I,
But I mean, I dislike the breed. I never want to have one. Not only in my house, I don't want one in my neighborhood.
well, I was,
But I can't deny that I've known many pit bulls that are glorious dogs.
I was out and about several days ago.
Yeah.
I didn't have a car to get into, and I was in a neighborhood, and a dog was about a quarter block away from me, clearly a stray, big pit bull. I was the only person on the block waiting for somebody to open up this business that I was going to, and I was nervous.
Yeah.
And the dog stopped and looked at me for quite a while to decide whether or not I was a threat to him.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't do anything to
Yeah, I
attract his
mean-
attention. I just sort of didn't pay attention. But I was like, all right, this is uncomfortable because there was nobody around. A bunch
Right.
of open fields near where I was.
Oh, yeah.
And just a stray dog roaming around who was probably pretty
I remember
hungry.
talking to a TV reporter. Well, they don't attack you for food. I mean, I don't think they're attacking you to eat you.
Well, but
they have this instinct. They
protecting
have
their
this
territory,
drive.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I
They have
mean-
this prey drive and so forth. You know, when they get really dangerous is when there's more than one of them. You know, one running around is one pit bull running around, but get three.
Well, that's just the one I saw. The grass was so
guy-
tall in this neighborhood that I couldn't
know.
see anything else.
And
that
that
was going
guy
on there.
that they're charging right now is, you know, he had been cited before. He had a crappy fence that didn't hold him, and he had the door to his garage was left standing open. The dogs just came right out. They didn't have to go through the fence. They just came right out through the door, an open door, and where that girl was in the alley, where the garage led out to. It was terrible. I mean,
It's
can you imagine
awful
a worse
tragedy.
death? Yeah,
An
for a
awful
9-year-old
tragedy. And
girl.
you don't want to see knee-jerk reactions to this kind of stuff, but at
No.
the same time, we do need to.
That
you know,
guy
look,
needs to go away.
You know,
know,
I've
these-
never seen roving bands of corgis out there, you know, mauling people. Okay, I mean, we do
Corgis
need to,
are
we
expensive,
do need to
though.
admit that different dogs have different tendencies.
Although corgis do bite. No, you're right though. They're not. You're right.
Chihuahua.
the only thing they bite is your hand if you got a treat in it, because they're greedy little things.
know,
They are. I had one for 14 years. She
they're
was just
ankle
like, "Give me that
nippers.
treat."
Yeah, you're right. No, but you're right. But
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
but they're
what
hurting
about
dogs.
these ones in Oakland County a few years ago? Those were cane corsos.
That's a big.
It's a huge
dog.
breed. It's like almost like a mastiff. It's enormous.
But my mastiff, my parents had a mastiff, an English mastiff. It was 240 pounds, but also was the biggest wuss of any dog that's
All right,
ever been born.
but that's my point.
That's
is
their
like there's-
personality, though.
Is that you can say, you know, this breed is inherently dangerous. Well, there's pit bull enthusiasts all over this city that can bring out pit bull after pit bull that will lick your hand and wag his tail
Yes,
at you. So I
and-
mean,
but
it's a question of how these
But
guys.
it's also
breed
one of
and
those
treat
things
them.
that I'm never quite sure when I see
No,
one,
I'm
and
always
that's what
careful
makes
around
people
them.
uncomfortable. And
I
so
know.
people who own pits,
Yeah.
I would implore them to, you know, if you can find a way to reassure people that your dog is indeed friendly, you know, do so, because people are scared and. Dogs sense that you are nervous around them. They will try to establish dominance over somebody they think is afraid of them.
Right.
And that's just, you got to be aware of that. And so just make sure that your dog is leashed and that you've got it under control. Because if you don't and something happens,
It's terrible.
it's
I
terrible
know.
because you're going to lose your best pal.
Yeah.
And that dog is going to be destroyed if
Right.
it bites somebody.
And
Just
it
period.
should. And it should be
I don't know what
destroyed.
else to say because they're never going to get rid of them all. You're right.
I was going to say that in Washington, D.C., and I don't know if it's still the case, but I know they had a ban in public housing with pit bulls. You cannot own one.
Right. Yeah.
There's a number
Well,
of
in
cities that
public
have
housing.
done this.
Yeah,
You know, but we shall see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about least surprising news of the week? least surprising news of the week. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been hired by Fox News as a contributor.
What?
Just announced
Because she's
today.
a journalist, man. That woman is a J,
It's a Huckabee
capital
station
J
now.
journalist. Yeah, the Huckabees. Yeah, the Huckabees. Wow.
Father and daughter.
Well, exactly.
They're ordering smoky.
The brain trust of
eyes.
the U.S. is all packed into that one station now.
Smoky eyeshadow is being brought in by the truckload for her. Yeah.
And also, Sean Spicer has been hired for Dancing with the Stars.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I
so
don't-
apparently there is life after being a Trump campaign.
Of course there is, and that's what
spokesperson.
makes that is. You talk about the swamp. To
Their
me,
transition
this-
from being spokesperson back to the world has been a lot easier than mine.
Yeah.
So
To me, this is the true swamp. Is this kind of like the culture of the green room, right?
Yeah.
You know, where all these people saying, oh, you were just doing your job, and it's one thing if it's Fox, Huckabee or Sarah Sanders on Fox is like self-contained. It's a self-contained universe.
Sure.
But to put Sean Spicer on Dancing with the Stars, this is not a show that I watch, and I'm really glad that I don't watch. But I mean, that's just reprehensible. I mean, at what point, who's Scaramucci is probably going to end up on, the People's Court or something.
well,
again.
Scaramucci's
Oh,
The Mooch is
he's all over the place.
He's gone
Mooch
rogue.
Exactly.
Making
So
some
I
splashes.
don't know what's going to happen with that one, but Fox News. Wow, so
know.
transparent.
Sarah Palin is
Fair
no
and
longer on
balanced,
Fox
so.
News. Look at it that way.
Actually,
remember
Chris
she used
Wallace.
to have.
Chris Wallace, I think, is really a stand-up journalist.
But at some
Oh,
point, some of these
Mike
stand-up journalists are going to have to
less
take
favorite
stand.
son.
Yes, yes.
I mean, if you're like Shepard Smith, and they sit there and go, "Hey, we want Sarah Huckabee Sanders on your panel," does he get to veto that and just say,
I would
"No,
hope so.
No,
Yeah,
I don't think
I would
so.
think
I don't
so.
think I want this person."
I'll tell you what, though, we cut the cord a few years ago. I have not missed cable news for 1 minute. I sometimes on election night, but there are so many alternatives online. I don't miss it, and for precisely this reason.
For precisely that.
Yeah.
Oh no, I know. Okay, so where are we going to go next? A couple of stories that actually got a lot of attention.
Can we leave on a lighter note?
Yeah,
No.
well, I'm going to find some stuff.
Is there a story about ice cream or puppies or
Well,
kittens?
Well, actually, this might be political. I'm not sure, but the Detroit Zoo says they're going to be using all renewable power by 2021.
Good enough for me.
I thought that was a pretty good thing.
I'm glad they're not burning manure for it because that's
That's
always
happening.
a possibility.
That's
I know.
happening,
Yeah,
and
cow chips,
it's something that I might
buffalo
actually
chips.
have some information on for people in a few weeks. I'll let you know if that's actually going to happen. That's kind of good. What else? What else do we have here that I wanted to get into? Dan Gilbert on the mend.
Yeah.
Apparently, he is back in the city. He's left the rehab facility in Chicago and is back in Detroit. We'll see. It seems that everybody was a little bit worried that certain projects have been stalled in his absence.
Right.
I have this feeling that that's not necessarily the case, but
I don't know.
it seems that there's a lot of anxiety around his wellness
Right.
and what it means for the future of this place.
I mean, I think
Strokes
the
are
projects
tricky.
in the making are going to move forward. The question is, I mean, he's a gambler and he's a visionary, and so I think he's the guy who's going to make those bold moves in the company. You wonder if there's somebody in his place who's willing to make those same bold moves that he has, and it appears to have paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. Another story that showed up in Deadline this week that we'll end on this one because I just kind of like this idea. It's a beautiful day outside today. It's
is.
barely in the 70s and the sun is shining. It's making me think
Spectacular.
that fall is right around the corner, which I love. But there's a
this
story
gonna
in
be about
Deadline about
pumpkin
pumpkin
spice?
spice.
Oh, God.
And I'm thinking to myself, and Alan Stam wrote this for Deadline. It just says, way too soon for pumpkin ales, even in Michigan. And I'm thinking to myself, who cares? Why can you not have pumpkin spice in the middle of August or July or any time that you want pumpkin
For
spice?
the same reason that you should not have a peach pie for Christmas dinner. Okay, there's
Wow, I didn't
What-
realize that.
seasonality.
Since when?
There is a seasonality thing here.
I mean, I'd
okay?
eat peach pie for breakfast in January if I get it. I don't care. Peach pie is
That's
good.
the point. It is good, but you should save it. There's the concept of seasonality is very important.
What do
truly
you see
enjoying
as
food.
the most appropriate Christmas pie?
For it would be pecan, mince meat.
But pecan pie is also good anytime.
It is good.
It's my
anytime,
favorite
but
thing in
it's
the
like
world.
fruit pies in the summer when fruit is in season. Cream pies, in the shoulder season.
apparently no
Unless
cherry
you get
pies
the
this
hostess-
year.
Unless
No
you get
che-
the hostess pies. Year round.
Because those are real.
Those are real.
The filling in
real
there is-
deal.
I want to throw. We're talking about.
Go ahead.
How despairing the news has been lately. How truly ugly it makes us feel, and how we all want to. If you're on Twitter, you need to follow an account. I'm going to spell it. It's Canehill CC, CAENHILLCC. It's this farm in England.
Okay.
Where it's some kind of like community resource farm, like where they take kids, and it's like old McDonald's farm.
Okay.
Not a real working farm, but every morning every day they post multiple videos of the animals. But my favorites are the morning rush hour, where the guy goes to the barn and he opens the door and all of the poultry come out, and they all have names, and there's usually goats, and I think there's a donkey in there too. They all have names, and he calls them all by their names. It's just hysterical, and it just makes me feel good about the farm.
Wow.
So he's like, Cece, Cuthbert, and he's, here comes Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. Emerson, Lake, and Palmer, like 3 chickens. Oh,
I'm
great.
not a fan of farm animals, but
You got to see it. It's so
I know.
adorable.
Farms are
there's
not my
2
thing.
goats.
I'm definitely a city person.
There's 2 goats named April and July. I love it.
Goats especially, because they
they're bad.
They nibble on your clothes,
But
and all
they're
that
also
stuff.
really smart.
Oh, and shock of shocks, real fast. We'll end on this because the Tigers actually beat the Astros.
Unbelievable.
Something I wasn't expecting.
They were saying that.
They were
the
2
odds
hit
makers
and won the game. Justin Verlander threw a 2-hitter and lost to the Tigers.
the odds makers had
just
given
basically
that,
sums up his career in Detroit right there.
they had said it was some of the highest odds ever that an odds maker had set for before the game.
Yeah.
In terms, I mean, look, Justin Verlander,
Yeah,
who's
you should have
just a
you should
total.
have bet on the
Yeah, I
Tigers.
know.
And,
Who knew? I mean,
man,
you assumed
that
the
would've
score
paid
was
off.
probably going to be about 8-2 Houston minimum, maybe 11-2, and then it was like I think it was the 9th inning. I turned on the TV and it was like the Tigers were ahead 2-1, and I was shocked.
Well, and the thing is, they won by throwing out Altuve on his way to third because he went up the gap, and you're like, okay, the game's going to be tied in a second. It's just a matter of time before they win, and they threw him out at third base, which on a perfect defensive play, which is not something we've seen very often from this team.
Maybe they're coming together.
Which also
Like a week
they
left
had
in the
their.
season.
I mean, what they were thinking is maybe they just didn't care because their best hitter was coming up next.
Yeah.
You got a man on second. You got your best hitter up. Is like, why not? Why push it? And I mean, he was out by. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't by a mile, but he was out.
No, they got
It
about
was
3
clear.
steps. 3 steps. So it was pretty easy.
That's a
out.
mile.
It was pretty, yeah.
That's a mile in
Yes.
baseball.
Or the guy who was the all MVP last year. So
Yeah.
he's a good player. Anyway, all right, we got to wrap it up because next weekend we won't have to talk about the Tigers much longer because I do believe Michigan State and Michigan both kick off next weekend.
Wow, really?
yeah,
Already?
it's college football time. So Nancy, get ready.
Are you a big college football?
Love college
fan?
football. Yeah, absolutely. My dad played football, so I grew up watching football. We
Really?
had Michigan
Who did he play
tickets.
for?
He played for Eastern Michigan back in the early 60s, and then has had Michigan season tickets. The family's had them for eons. So
As a daughter of Columbus, Ohio, I have very strong feelings about college football, and they're not positive.
well, see,
It's like living
it's
in
not,
the Soviet
but it's not,
Union. It really
well,
was.
the same colors too.
It really was.
This is maybe a non sequitur, but a friend of mine when I was in my 20s, sometimes we'd go to a party and he would be talking to a woman and he would say, my father was a dancer, and they would go, oh really? And he goes, yeah, he died dancing at the end of a rope. And they'd go,
What does that have to do with football?
I don't know. It's as athletic as I can think of.
All right.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
I said
Okay.
non sequitur, but maybe
Okay,
a
good.
non.
Let's all tell a joke.
Wait! We have to before we finish. We forgot.
What?
We don't get to buy Greenland. What the heck is that all about? I meant to talk about Greenland. How do you tick off Denmark? I don't understand this.
I don't get it. I mean, the Danes are just, they're even-tempered people, and we managed to do it. The
I love
diplomat
it.
of the year.
She finally just said, "This is a really stupid idea." God bless her.
Absurd, she said.
Mitta is her
She
first
said
name.
And you know who
absurd, and
took
he
offense?
said you don't say words like that, and
then
I'm
he
saying,
canceled
yeah,
the
it should have
state dinner.
been.
He's a
it
mad
should-
king.
It
Does
should have
he-
been the translation. You're an idiot.
Does
Why
he
are you?
Does he have
thinking-
tertiary syphilis? I'm beginning to think maybe that's what's going on here.
Well, isn't that what took out Al Capone?
Yeah.
There
Well,
you
no,
go.
that an accountant took out Al Capone.
Well, he died in jail of syphilis, if I'm not
Syphilis,
mistaken.
wow.
Anyway, so
All
I
right.
forgot about the Greenland. So sad. You'll still need your passport to get to Greenland, everybody. All right, Alan, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Michael
very
Lucido,
much.
we appreciate you engineering the broadcast today. We'll be back next week, and I guarantee you the silliness will continue because, who knows, maybe Iceland's for sale. We'll find out. Anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy this gorgeous, gorgeous weekend on tap for us here in Metro Detroit. It is going to be about as nice as it gets around here, and we'll see you on Monday.
And drive home carefully.
Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.